Thank you guys so much for waiting. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started here. But for everyone who's new to MVHQ, first and foremost, welcome. Really excited to have everyone here. And we're excited to be back for office hours. So today I'm going to be talking about some project research, but I did want to start the session just by talking about trading in general. My trading style has evolved a lot from my time starting NFTs, and wherever you are in your career, you're always going to want to be thinking about portfolio and bankroll management. So to put it in just plain terms, bankroll management, or what your whole portfolio is going to be, is just the collection of everything you have, right? So NFTs, your ETH that you have, maybe US dollars if you want to consider that too on the side. But when you're trading, you want to think about how can you leverage your liquidity to its fullest extent. That doesn't always mean going all in, especially for people who are newer to NFTs. It's really tempting to just go all in on every single project. And let's say you have low liquidity, it's even easier to do that, right? If you only are trading with 0.5 ETH, project might come out for 0.5 ETH, and it's really easy to just say, hey, like I'm going to go for this. I see a lot of people in chat are going for it. Sometimes that is a good strategy, but if you are wrong and you put your entire liquidity in there, right, all 0.5 ETH into an NFT, you can't use that ETH to trade other projects now. So now you're all tied up in this one NFT, and if it doesn't work out, if it goes to zero, if the project is delisted, whatever happens, suddenly you take a loss to your account. So when I'm trading NFTs, I'm always thinking about what is my total bankroll and how many types of trades do I want to take. If you're someone who's trading all the time and you want to do every single project that comes out, that's totally fine. But you want to figure out, how much of your bankroll can you allocate to every trade. I would try to recommend, give yourself some room to make multiple trades. And liquidity is always key. Anyone in this chat will tell you that if you want to be a successful trader, it's really important to have liquidity on hand so that when the next surefire trade comes along your desk, you are ready to deploy your ETH and take advantage of that. So I just wanted to give you guys that little background before we get into actually looking at projects that are coming out and when I'm looking to vet projects for if they're good or not. Because just thinking about your bankroll and thinking about what types of trades do you want to take is really going to influence how you look at projects. There's lots of different types of projects that come out, some that are really good flips, stuff that you're going to buy and sell 10 minutes later. And then there's other stuff that's like blue chip status or becoming a blue chip, and those are things you might hold on longer. So all of that fits into the frame of your bankroll and your portfolio management. But without further ado, here we are on NFT Nerds, and this is my tool of choice in order to monitor marketplace activity. You might look at other marketplaces or other tools to aggregate this information for you. It all works the same, but the idea is that you want to have some sort of pulse on the marketplace when you're looking for projects. And there is research you can do on projects that haven't come out yet. That's just as important. But we're going to just start on NFT Nerds because this is sort of the jumping off point for any day. So the first thing that we're going to look for is honestly just volume. If I'm looking to do a flip and just do a very quick scalp, I'll be looking at the 5-minute time frame. If I've been offline for the weekend or all day, I'll be looking at the 1 day just to see what are kind of the projects that are catching attention. So flipping over to the 5-minute, we're looking for stuff that has volume coming in. So you can see here with the pendings, there's 15 pendings on Angry Apes. I know being an MVHQ voice chat, that's a project that a lot of people are looking at, but you can't just see, okay, there's pendings and assume I need to get in this project because there's a lot of people buying it. There's a lot more to consider. So we want to see, us as a buyer, how would we evaluate Angry Ape Society? And I'm just going to pretend that I haven't seen any of the stuff that's been in voice chat earlier today. That is always a great place to start if you are looking to get into a project, is see if anyone else in voice chat is interested in it. Do they have any takes, etc. But one of the things we're going to look at when taking trades or evaluating projects is just a quick glance over to the price chart here and sort of seeing who has already gotten into these projects. What point in time are we, right? So this project is only a day old. I know that it released earlier today, and you're sort of seeing that off the gate, we got a little bit of a pump. The price action fell back down here. And what you're trying to get a sense of when you're just looking at a price chart is where did everyone enter and at what point might they be taking profits? So if you were looking at this chart earlier and this right portion didn't just exist and you notice that you're entering at the top part of a curve here, that's kind of a warning sign just that if the price is not just continuing to go linearly up, you're going to have a hard time selling, right? It's normal that after the price went from one price band to another, that some people might be taking profits. So I'm also, when evaluating projects, just trying to think of like, Where did other people enter? How much money is there for me to be made? Where might people be selling? So as it's coming back here and consolidating a little bit, if you do end up liking this project, you might say, hey, this is a good price point to get in because most people didn't get in cheaper than this point. So if someone's going to be taking a loss or wanting to get out, it's going to be around this level. And as people buy, it might start to go up higher. Also, when considering when to buy, I'm always looking at the aggregated floor here. This is just showing you how thick or thin the floor is between price ranges. And on NFT Nerds, you can change the group size to say, you know, if you want to really hone it into 0.01, how many NFTs need to be sold until it reaches that next price point. If you want like a high view, you can put it in at 0.1. But yeah, I'm kind of just gauging the speed of sales coming in versus listings going out. Usually if you see sales ripping here, so if these were all less than 10 seconds and it just took up the entire page, and I look over here at the listings and notice these haven't been listed in minutes or hours, that's probably a pretty good sign that people are going to be tearing into the floor. And then depending on how many NFTs stand between where we're at and, you know, what my desired exit will be, inform my decision of this, if this is the right project for me to get into, right? I'm always looking at the floor regardless of the project. If it's blue chip or if it's something that's been out for 5 minutes, I'm looking at how many sales need to happen until I can get out at my profit point. And if listings are coming in way faster than sales, that means that it's never going to happen. So if listings are exceeding sales for a project, I'm probably not going to look in until there's a better entry based on the floor. I feel like I talked about a lot just in terms of like monitoring this. Are there any questions so far from chat about like any of the stuff I just talked about?
Yeah, I see a question by Scottco. Do you have an ETH to NFT ratio of liquidity you like to stay within for your overall portfolio?
It's a great question. It really depends on what your risk tolerance is. I got absolutely wrecked my first bull market in NFTs because I was like 90% NFTs, right? Like I had just a way overblown proportion of my liquidity in NFTs, particularly just because this was in like the whole we're all going to make it phase and blue chips seemed way too big to fail. But a lot of stuff in this market happens like in the crypto sphere, and the markets move in tandem. Like you'll notice right now, Ethereum's ripping, Bitcoin's ripping, like NFTs are looking good. If something were to happen in that crypto sphere, how much of a loss on your portfolio can you actually take? And, you know, going back to what we talked about with looking at price charts, what does the price chart look like for the NFT project that you're in, right? If it's something that's up like 500% over the past couple of weeks, there's always the possibility for the pullback. So I would just be constantly reassessing what is the place of the NFT that you have in your portfolio rather than just have a set rule. If it's something that you know, hey, this is a blue chip, this is something that I want to hold forever. Like let's say you have a Bored Ape and you say, I don't ever want to be without Yuga, then that's fine, right? However much of that is going to take up in your portfolio, it's going to take up. But if you're just holding a bunch of projects throughout the week, like projects, I would say, that aren't going to be blue chips, just stuff that's kind of popular or has its time in the spotlight, those I would conservatively take up like 20% of your liquidity at any point in time. But I would certainly, if you see volume starting to dry up on projects that you're in, don't be scared to sell it, right? I think a lot of people hold things to zero too often. I think that if you see volume starting to slow up and there's not really an anticipated surge of activity that you're going to see coming in the future, like is there a reveal happening? Is there an event coming up? If there's really not much and you think that your NFT might be losing a little bit of life, I think that's sometimes a good time to consider cutting that and getting some liquidity back. But all right, we're going to go from talking about price action and monitoring nerds and stuff to just research and what I want to see at a project. So the first thing I'll probably do is just pop over to the OpenSea page, and Nerds makes it really easy for you by just having all the little thumbnails so you can pop around and see what's going on. This is loading pretty slow. Just give it a second here. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to look for in a project is honestly just the art. And this one is a little bit subjective. So obviously people like different types of art. Some people might love this art style. Some people might hate it. But when you have experience to just watching the market day after day after day, you kind of get a sense of what has already been done before, what catches your own eye, and what sort of stands out. So my initial reaction upon seeing this is that the art's not bad, right? It's not terrible. The NFTs are distinguishable. I think that's a really big thing, especially with pixel art projects. You'll notice that sometimes NFT collections just look super similar from one NFT to the other. That, in my mind, is usually a red flag if the art is overly similar, because it makes it less likely that people are actually going to use it for profile pictures, or actually, want to collect the different ones. If they all look exactly the same, why would someone want to collect one that looks different? They're all interchangeable at that point. So from an art perspective, they look different enough. Some people like this art style. Something that I kind of consider in my mind is, what sort of niche is this filling, right? The animal profile picture thing, Angry Apes, obviously because of Bored Apes, we've seen hundreds and thousands of ape projects. So in my honest assessment of this, like, another ape project is nothing that special. In order to see more if we're going to actually get into this project or not, we're going to want to check out their socials, their Discord, see if there's anything that they're planning underneath the hood. But I'm always just at the top looking at the artwork and what kind of project it fills, and sort of starting to build that picture of what are we looking at here. On OpenSea, really great things that you can look at, and you can also look at these as nerds as well, is unique ownership and then the number of owners. This is really important to me if I'm getting into a project. If the ownership is low, I usually see this as a bad sign. There's some instances where it's not a bad sign. Let's say it's an Art Blocks project and there's only 10 unique owners, but they're huge whales and they're, really big VC funds or something. Maybe then that'll be a good thing. But for an average project like this with a large collection size, you want more unique owners, because that shows that people are actually buying it. It's not just the project itself. It's not just some paid promoters who are scooping up a bunch. It's a lot of people who are trying to get into the project. You also want to look at the percentage listed, right? If everyone has theirs listed, probably means that no one really wants it. Low listings and high unique ownership is something that you love to see. From here, we can dive into their socials a little bit. So we can go over to Twitter first. And this is honestly stuff that I'll do for most projects that I'm looking into a little bit. I'm not going to lie, not every single project that I'm, aping or degenning into, I'm going to go through this whole thorough process. But for projects that I'm really considering deploying a substantial amount of Ethan or buying multiples of, I will always make sure to go through the process of checking out all their socials. What we want to look for on Twitter is, do we actually believe that this is a real number of followers that they have? The reason why is because we want to make sure that they actually are building some semblance of a real community with real engagement, and they're not just, paying bots to follow them on Twitter, which shows that they're kind of trying to cash grab. They're trying to funnel people over here, but maybe they don't have a whole project planned out. A good way you can see if the followers are real or fake is just kind of take a look at some of their tweets and see how much engagement they're getting. So this was tweeted 43 minutes ago. It has 41 likes for 12,000 followers. That's honestly not too bad. And you can see with the engagement, it reached 2,000 people. So a sixth of their followers, that's somewhat believable. Some projects where it's glaringly obvious it's fake followers is if they have like 90,000 followers and their photos that they're tweeting out have 8 likes, like something comically low for their engagement. If they just have an outrageous number of fake followers, in my mind, that's usually a red flag and something that turns me off of a project. 7 minutes ago, they already have 307 views, 21 likes. It doesn't seem bad. So just from looking at their Twitter, I'm not unhappy with what I'm seeing here. Again, not super unhappy with the artwork, but the biggest red flag for me on these apes is just that it is another ape project and we've seen 1,000 of them. So I personally would probably be fading it, but to each their own. There's plenty of people who are buying today. From there, we can go ahead and check out their website. And while we're pulling up the website here, any questions from chat so far? Poppy, you see anything?
Yeah, I see that Scott Co dropped a question on what kind of platform would you use to trade?
Just to trade?
Sorry, I got rogued there real quick. Your favorite tool you'd recommend for buying, sweeping on secondary when there's a lot of volume?
Gotcha. I would probably just use Gem. It's my favorite. I think it's saves some money just from buying manually off OpenSea. You can also on Nerds Now sweep. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but if you just click the sorry, Nerds has got a load here. Let me refresh this real quick.
Yeah, another thing while we load up here, Joe is wondering. He would love to see more about the red flags that you check before mint, and if you hold for things that you hold a whitelist as well.
Sure. All right, so just real quick on nerds here, if you want to sweep, you can click this individual picker option, and then you can are able to click multiple NFTs all at once. So you can do this if you're just on nerds. This is nice just because if you're looking at stuff, or if you want to just like snipe particular rarities, right? So if I'm like, oh, I just want to grab individual rarities, maybe I see something really rare pop up and I just want to grab it quickly, you can aggregate on nerds that way, and then just hit this buy button, which will prompt you to sweep. But you can also use the tool Gem, which is a pretty good aggregator in my experience. For all of the like sweeping tools, a lot of them have like trouble spots sometimes. Like I've had issues with nerds, I've had issues with Gem, but I would just try a bunch of them out. And again, MVHQ is just the best resource for everything, right? If you have any questions for aggregators, if you need links or you need ways to find them, ask in chat at any point. Someone can absolutely help you with that. So stuff we've talked about with red flags, that's a really good question. A lot of it just comes out to familiarity with the market thus far, right? It's like, have you seen a project that looks very similar to this other project before is the biggest red flag to me. So similar how we talked about Angry Ape Society, like let's just pop over to trending. I'm sure we'll see something. Like CheckPunks, there's been so many punk derivatives in the same vein, and this is like just riding off the coattails of what the meta is, right? Because that project Checks did pretty well, so ideally they're just baiting people into what's hot right now. That's probably the biggest red flag to me, is just a derivative that's been overdone. You know, if you've seen a bunch of these check projects or a bunch of punk projects, like if it's getting to the end of a life cycle for just whatever kind of project is hot, I would start just avoiding it. The Trump trading cards, another great example. Those did really well. The first derivative off the gate with those Biden trading cards, those did well. Towards the end of the week, it was just like Nancy Pelosi's stepson trading card. Like at that point, the project in itself is just a red flag because we've seen it so much. So there's not really much expectation of it going further. Beyond that, you can check out the holders page on here. I think that that's something to be aware of because there are like massive holders who will sneak up and just dump all of their holdings at once. I don't know why they do it, but sometimes like the big whales will just dump all at once. So a red flag would be like the project creator, so whoever deployed the contract for Honk in the first place, if they were the number one holder by a lot and you saw them actually selling their own NFTs, that's kind of a red flag unless they address that directly on their Discord. If whales are all kind of like dumping, if one person has too many, that's kind of a red flag. It's not usually as related to holders, but holder count is 100% something you want to keep in mind when you're looking at a project. Just being aware of like who the whales are, if they are notable at all, and then also, you know, what is their activity. If it's someone who owns like 100 but hasn't sold a single one in weeks, that's probably a good sign, right? Because you have a massive whale who's just like basically squeezing your supply and making it harder to get their hands on an NFT for other people joining the project. So ideally, you want to see the unique holder count go up, but in the case of whales, like it's just something to look at. Other red flags actually can relate to metadata on OpenSea. So when a lot of projects are created, especially projects that are kind of like cash grabby in the sense that they're just trying to sell quickly and, you know, they're not really going to do a lot in their life cycle as a project, they might not even have properties on their NFTs. This will happen sometimes. This is a big red flag for me, especially for like generative art projects. If it's all just one property, it really hurts the collection as a whole, because rarities and just people coveting rares does have a lot to do with like the longevity of a project, at least in my own experience. So if the rares aren't that differentiated, or if everything is very similar, that is a big red flag. And I'm glad I brought up rarity structure as well, because like I would just say as a project as a whole, you want the rares to look vastly different than the commons of the collection and to look really nice. You really want something that incentivizes like bigger buyers to come in and buy the rare pieces of a collection, because I think that incentivizes the lower tiers of the collection to get a little bit more traffic, right? So if someone bought the number one in a collection for 10, 20, 30 ETH, that is a huge green flag for me to say, oh, wow, you know, some whale out there is paying a shit ton of money to get this rare NFT. That bodes well for the whole collection because it's just hyping up everything, right? I remember crypto brokers was like the perfect example for this. The floor was like 1 ETH at the time, and people were coming in getting rares for like 40, 50, 30 ETH. I mean, it was just such notable that the rares were going for that much that I just went ahead and, you know, started buying the commons, and sure enough, like the floor caught up. So a little bit of a tangent, but that is green flags and red flags are all tied to rarity. So again, see how the different properties of the NFTs are similar to each other, see how they're different, see what the price action looks like. Going back to the website here. So for website, again, there's no one size fits all solution. We're just going to be kind of going around their different tabs and seeing what they have planned for us. Ideally, what we're seeing is a project with a unique vision, things that are actionable, steps that provide value to their holders, and ideally just something that looks different and not like every project that we've seen before. So just at a glance here, decently designed website. Looks like they got lots of traits here. It's pretty streamlined. If we're looking at what's next, let's see if the goals that they have here are actionable. Talking about red flags, if it's what's next, they're going to say like, we're going to try to connect with holders. We're going to try to do this. And they just don't have anything actually planned. That's a red flag, right? If they're just giving you like BS lingo, like we're going to have a holder giveaway, that doesn't mean anything. Like you want a project that's actually planned out to do fun, cool stuff. Airdrop mint pass for comic book, kind of a red flag. I feel like this has already been done. Airdrops, not really that exciting anymore. Release comic book digitally and physically. Expand PR team. See, this is just like broad language that's like, we're gonna increase our exposure. It's not really like a formal step on a roadmap of here's how we're gonna do it. Set up educational team and newspaper. Like, in my opinion, these are pretty dinky steps on a roadmap of what's next. So this wouldn't really get me that excited. But to each their own. Again, like I am certainly not the say and end all opinionator in this space. Everyone has their own opinion. Projects will run for any reason. So like, it's always great to look at this stuff. But it's definitely going to be different for everyone and how they look at stuff. The website does look good though. I'll give them that. Like I like this little spot here. The apes look nice here on the about page. Passionate team. Make sure all their buttons work basically. I mean, if you're going to a website and their buttons don't work or their website just looks haphazardly put together, that's a red flag. At the very least, you want to make sure that they have an explanation for what they're doing and they're given some stuff here. Oh, wow. The fact that they don't even have a Discord server. They might have one now. I know this project just came out today, but you definitely want a Discord for the projects that you're on. You really want to make sure there's a Discord. That's a huge red flag if they don't have a Discord, because that's your way as a project holder to interact with the project owners, right? And you really want that communication between the founders and the holders of a project, because that's how you get a good community popping off. So I would say Discord server is a really vital part of any project. If you don't see it, that's definitely a big red flag. And that was actually the last thing I was going to talk about, because it's arguably one of the most important, is actually looking at the Discord for a project. So we'll just go back here, see if Angry Ape Society, nope, that's just their website again. Let's see if they got it on Nerds. Might not. Let's see if we can find a project with a Discord, because that's honestly pretty important in terms of project vetting. And while I'm finding a project with a Discord link, any questions from the chat that you're seeing, Poppy?
Yeah. Another question by Zhao. He's wondering if you're going to be going into researching on Twitter, kind of like the pre-phase, figuring out whether projects are going to be a cook based off their social interactions. I can also chime in on that as well. That's something that I have experience with in our our collabs team as well. That's how I got my start in MVHQ. So free to chime in there as well.
Oh yeah, no, Poppy, go for it.
Yeah. So for most projects, you gotta tailor your Twitter to what you want to find, right? So like if you're interacting with, memes, shit posts, tweets, and accounts that are not really putting out what you're looking for, then you're not really gonna find what you want. Now, if you're interacting with your Twitter and saying like, "Hey, I didn't like this tweet that was, just a statistic or something," right? You can just interact with that tweet and say that you don't want to see that more often. And you can tailor that to be the person tweeting it, the retweets that person puts out, and even likes. So you can get to a point where, like, let's say that you start following like collab managers or, people that are constantly looking for a one-of-one artist, or whales. Like it's always good to follow these different accounts that have different input on what a project might be, because if you see that you have mutual followings with whether it's an artist or an early on project, then you see like, okay, well, these guys are looking at this might be something, and that might be an indicator for you to go back and be like, okay, let me think twice and keep tabs on this. So yeah, you could just build like a small list or database where you have a list of projects showing you like, okay, checking on a weekly basis, like, have they done anything, right? Are they growing? And that's how you can use Twitter to your advantage. And there are Twitter tools and bots that scrape they scrape the platform for new accounts that are tailored to what you want. Like there's bots that can pull up NFT accounts that have just popped up, and that's one way to approach it. But if you tailor your Twitter to what you want, I mean, projects literally fall on your lap. All you have to do is scroll a little bit and you'll see people either replying, liking, following, and even the recommend page. You'll find some good projects that way.
Really well said, Poppy. Couldn't agree more with everything that you just talked about. I mean, Twitter is a great tool for finding out about projects. I would say, like, as I got a little bit more firmly cemented in the space, I just relied on MVHQ more and more and more, because going through Twitter and just seeing all of the projects that come out, like, there's so many projects that do come out, it's hard to keep track of everything. I know that we've had office hours in the past about virtual assistants, and some people go as far as having teams to do research for them. MVHQ in general is such a good resource to figure out, what projects are coming out during the week. And if there's anything notable, you'll certainly hear people talking about it in chat. But to your point, Poppy, just knowing who to follow on Twitter and making sure that, you're kind of sorting for quality content so that that's what the algorithm starts picking up on, that's a great life hack or NFT hack. All right, but going to the Discord portion here. So we're at Fun Apes NFT, and this is probably a sympathy type play based on the Angry Apes action that was happening earlier in the day. And the reason I'm just pointing that out as a sympathy play is because there's lots of different reasons that stuff might appear in the trending tab at any point during the day, and just being able to pick out why is it trending is really important. So if we go to like the 5-minute tab here, you might want to this really all ties to like market familiarity and just making sure that you're at least checking in once a day to understand what kind of projects are coming out. There are times when there is just such a clear meta to the market. There is at one point any project that was anime related was just doing super well, and we sort of went through this anime meta kind of phase, right? So understanding why projects are pumping. Is this just another anime play? Is it a sympathy play? Meaning like if Honk ripped up to 1 ETH right now, there would probably be other projects that are Goose related or have similar names to Honk, like Meep or something like that. Those might do well just because it's a similar project with a cheaper entry. And for those kind of sympathy plays, they're usually a lot shorter lived. For projects that are derivative, so going back to that one we were looking at, like the Fun Apes, if that's a sympathy play for Angry Apes, which doesn't even have a high floor at all, and that's the only reason it's getting some traffic is because it's just another ape project, the volume there is very short-lived. So you just really want to understand, like, why are things ripping. If I'm seeing the top projects are ape related and then every project here is also ape related, like just know that all of that volume can't sustain itself. So you really need to pick your points if you're going to be entering a project for a flip. In any trade I've entered into, I really try to have an expectation or an understanding of what am I trying to accomplish with this trade, right? Most of the time, I'm like definitely a very heavy flipper in our community versus other people. I know we have a lot of people in our community who are collectors and they love to hold projects with like strong mission statements and roadmaps and watch that play out over months and years. I'm personally the kind of guy that's just trying to buy a project and sell it shortly thereafter, 90% of the time. The 10% of the time would be reserved for projects that just have such good foundations or are blue chips that I want to hold it and just have exposure to NFTs. But for the most part, I'm just trying to get in, get out, because as more and more projects are produced every single day, something you'll start to notice is just like the life cycle of a project, at least its time in the spotlight on the trendings, is pretty short-lived. And a lot of people are using these aggregators and tools like NFT Nerds. So while we might see Monkey Trip NFT in the front spot here, and we might see some activity, that's not to say that we're going to see it at all a week from now, right? And when there's no people buying this project anymore and it's not showing up on people's aggregators, it's not just the first thing that people see when they're logging onto Nerds. So it's a lot harder for it to get traction again. And that's where you need to be thinking about, like, are there events that are going to move this project? If not, it's probably not the right project to get into, because if there's no force that's going to cause volume to increase, you're never going to get yours sold. All right, let's look at Discords for a project. Had the monkeys and kind of left them. I think this kid called Beast probably has a Discord given its size. Yep. All right, so we're looking at a project. We're going to hop into the Discord. I have never looked at this project before, but hopefully we can join with no problems. So we'll do Rossy Ross. Oh man, pressure's on here. Containing a sunflower. Keep me humble, chat. All right, we made it. Let's go. Oh boy. All right, chat. This is not my real birthday, just in case anyone was wondering.
You sure? You really sound like you were born in 1973.
No, I sound like a guy who just showed his phone number to our entire audience. That's all right, though. Honestly, if anyone from MVHQ wants to hit me up, that's fine. Let me not share my screen for like 30 seconds. Sorry. Any questions for the time being, though, while I verify into this Discord?
Well, you can kiss Rossboss through the phone.
Please.
Stealing Ross's identity is confirmed.
All right. So in time being, I found a Discord that was a little bit easier to join. So this is for a project that was on the screener here on NFT Nerds called Diligence. So I joined their Discord just so I can give you guys. Oops. Hear me still?
Yeah, we see the recording.
Okay, sweet. So we're going to go through Degen Skelly's Discord just to get an idea of what to look for. And I'll stop streaming. All right, I guess that's just going to have to be there. What we're looking for on the Discord is communications from the developers of the project, making sure that things are up to date, that they have an organized portfolio of information relating to their project. So, and we also want to make sure that the community has a place to chat. So already for community here, I'm seeing the Graveyard, which is probably their name for a general chat if I had to guess. So if you see in here, people can come in and chat. This is great because they're talking about the project. This is also something like, depending on what level of research and scrutiny you want to give a project, you can start analyzing who are the holders in the chat just based on what they're talking about, right? Are they talking about really noobish things like, this is my very first NFT, like I'm going to hold this till forever? Or is it like people who seem like they're savvy to the space? And you'll just be able to gauge this. Does it seem like people who speak like they're in MVHQ who have been exposed to NFTs before? what kind of people are in the community. You can really form a lot about like what is a holder profile, who are the kinds of people who I think are going to be holding this project based on a lot of the discourse that happens in the general chat. If it feels like everyone's complaining and no one's having a good time, it's probably not like a great project. Just generally speaking, that's not always the case, but it's somewhat of a red flag. If everyone's kind of vibing, having a good time, talking about how excited they are for the project, sharing sneak peeks and fire emojis, that's great, right? You want genuine excitement for it. So other things that we want to look for is information channel. So announcements is really important. How often are the creators of the project communicating to their holders? I'm seeing here this guy who's likely the founder, Satoshi. He posted something today, and he posted another message shortly after. Just notification on random links, so nothing crazy, but you would scroll through and say, what kind of information are they giving out about the project? How frequent are these updates? It looks like they're pretty frequently giving updates about the project, which is great. You want to have active developers so that if something were to go wrong, if something changed with the project, you know that that would be conveyed to you. The big takeaway from all of this that I'm starting to form in my mind is someone's actually working on this project. This is not just, hey, we released this once, these NFTs now do nothing. Someone's actually out here, you know, causing something to happen, or is at least keeping an eye out on what this project is. There, official FAQs, great place to start. You can get some information about minting. For whoever asked about assessing projects before they drop, this is something good to consider, right? You can look at what the whitelist structure is. Do you think the whitelist structure is something that's smart? Is it, you know, giving a fair shot for everyone to join the project? Are you happy with how they're conveying the information about the actual release of the project? All of the stuff we talked about, regardless, or other than the price action that we talked about earlier, it's still applicable here, right? So understanding what kind of holders are in the project, what does their Twitter look like? Is it real followers or not? It really just wants to feel official. You really want it to seem like they're communicative and have thought of all the ins and outs of their project. Something that we used to see a lot in projects, but you don't really see as much anymore, are just these really thorough roadmaps. I feel like every Discord used to have just right here in the welcome section with like official links or something, a roadmap where they would be talking about the long-term vision of their project. I'd say that's less, it's still really common, but it's less like of a necessity nowadays. The roadmap used to be one of the biggest things I looked at and just saying like, do these guys actually have a plan from start to finish? But like so many NFT projects kind of wing it right now and are very adaptive to market conditions that you don't always need one, but you still again want to just see that all of these sections are built out. Similar to MVHQ, we have all those different channels with things going on. If you joined a Discord and it just had like 2 of these channels here and there was no place for you to chat, there was no communication from the developers, that would be a red flag. And people who are newer in the space, you really do see it. You will see some absolute crappy Discords with just nothing here, and it's just like a walking red flag of holy shit, no one's communicating anything in here, and the general chat is just a free for all. We'll take a look at official links, see what else they got there. They got a mint link, that's great. A link to OS, nice. Yeah. A lot of this stuff will just be developed with time, but again, you're just trying to see, does this seem official? Does it seem like the project creators are prepared? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, in terms of research, we've gone from NFT nerds and catching a project with trending. We've looked at artwork from OpenSeas. We've looked at holder counts. We've talked about going through the Discord, the website, checking out Twitter for a little bit. I will again just use this as a time to just talk about price action really quickly. I think it is really important to just be monitoring price action and considering where other people have already purchased. It's like a game of chess almost, with who is trying to take profit where and where is your profit going to be within the mix. I'm always taking a look at this chart here. This is probably like the number one tool I'm using to tell me if I'm getting into a project or not. And just, you know, looking at the actual live feed here, I just see the floor is 0.03. Looks like one of the top rarities in this collection just sold for over 3 times the floor. So that bodes pretty well, right? We see some rares that are selling for a lot. I'm seeing that the holders compared to the supply is almost 50% unique holders. That's really nice. I'm seeing sales are flooding in here, right? You see less than 30 seconds, less than 40 seconds. It's outpacing the listings. Like here's listing by price. So these are still coming in decently quickly, but it definitely looks like sales are coming in faster than listings. So if I know that there's more sales than listings happening, that means that they're going to start shredding through this floor. So I'll start hovering my mouse over here and look, okay, for this to get to 0.04, there's 35 needed. I'm seeing the number go up now. So it's going from 35 to 36. If that number starts to go up, maybe I'll get out of the project. If this number starts to go down and this floor starts to get shredded out, maybe I'll get into the project because, hey, there's fewer sales needed to get to my exit target. If we're talking about exit target, Nerds also has this really nice feature that's somewhat new, the break-even point. This is honestly great because you should always be figuring out what your break-even is when you enter a project. You always need to account for gas fees. You always need to account for royalties. And honestly, royalties is a big consideration as well for me getting into projects. If it's a project that already has blue chip status, right? Let's say you want to get into Mutant Ape Yacht Club. Ideally, or for most cases, you're getting into a project because you have some expectation of a profit in the long term. If you're buying a project that's 10, 20 ETH, a lot of these projects with 10% royalties, you already need that price to increase by 2 ETH in order to even break even. So for those projects where you need a huge move of price in order to at least get even, that's where you even want to pay more attention to the price chart and look at where the floors are to know if you want to get in here or not. So I'm looking at the price action here. I'm seeing big sweeps coming in, lots of sales. This number's only moved down slightly. I guess it's exactly the same for where we last saw it. So maybe I get in if I got excited for the sweeps in the project overall. Maybe I'd be sitting it out if I'm seeing listings kick in, and even after all these sweeps, they're not selling. These are all just considerations that I'm thinking of all the time. And again, there's no concrete answer. There's never going to be someone who's holding your hand saying, get into this project and here's exactly why. There's never going to be a sure bet in the NFT space. And for every project, there's going to be people who like it, people who fade it, and everything in between. But the whole purpose of this office hours, and hopefully something you've walked away with, are just the questions that we ask ourselves when we look at any project. We want to consider our bankroll. We want to consider our liquidity. We want to consider the meta of the space. These are all things to just always be thinking about as you're assessing a project. And the more and more you do it, it becomes second nature. And I'm sure so many of the pros in this chat just have that, sixth sense almost built into their trading at this point, that they can just do all of these things on the fly very quickly, pop in, look at OpenSea, look at websites, and quickly form an opinion of, am I going to buy here or not? And that's honestly what it really all comes down to. Any other questions other than that? I think that's all I want to talk about today.
Yeah, I saw a question from Scotco. Are there any upcoming projects that stand out to you pre-mint from your recent research?
There's nothing that really stands out too much to me. I am honestly really excited for the art blocks piece tomorrow, but that is largely based on my own experience with art blocks. And this is something that I talked about earlier, where you'll kind of formulate your own ideas in your head of what kind of has that like factor for an NFT. A lot of it in my mind is just unique art and viable collection sizes. So I like stuff with a smaller supply, like 4,000, because it's a lot easier for the floors to move than something with like 10,000. So art blocks, if you're not familiar with it, is a very established community within NFTs. It's more of like a label than it is just an individual project, but within the art blocks realm, they have lots and lots of different releases that happen. The release that's coming out tomorrow is an art blocks curated. Those are just the most well regarded and coveted of all the art blocks collections. The curated, it's just how it is. Like that's their designer label, so to speak, for their NFTs. And the NFT that's coming out tomorrow has really good aesthetics. I love the different renderings. I've gone through and looked at the sample artwork that's available. I really like what I'm seeing. It reminds me of other art blocks collections that have done well historically in the past. So that's why, in my mind, it should do well. And I'm pretty bullish and looking forward to that. But other than that, there's nothing really that's on my radar right now. I haven't been as in-depth as I used to be about scouting for projects coming out in the future, since so much happens on a day-to-day basis now. I feel like I'm pretty just in the habit of checking out the trending tabs and checking MVHQ. But exactly what I said about art blocks and comparing it to other projects and just seeing things that have those good signs of knowing there's holders involved, there's historical collections I can compare it to that did well. those are the kinds of things that I think will allow you to think about other projects as well and things you should be looking for.
Yeah, that's amazing. And another piece of insight I'd give is the drop schedule that we post every day. It's usually posted in the morning. Always great to look into there. Kind of preps you for the day of upcoming mints that we usually have. 90% of the time, it has most mints that are scheduled. But obviously, you can run into your odd degen mint. And Scalco, I personally haven't been really researching into projects, but I mean, I just wouldn't fade like the big ones, like Ether. Like obviously, it can get flooded to hell, but you're going to see a lot of people FOMOing in just because they didn't have an entry, right? And you've seen that with captains. There's also mints that are like ecosystems, right? Like Memeland has done an insane thing with their ecosystem. And I mean, you can see it here in the server that there's a lot of potato holders and supporters of that project. So there might be, I think right now, there might be a better chance at supporting ecosystems that are running, as well as, you know, just finding cooks that we usually partner with or you find through Twitter. But yeah, I think the meta is always changing, so you have to adapt to what's coming up, right? So like, let's say Open Editions is the new cook, right? Which has been. Then you start tailoring your Twitter to search for artists that are doing Open Edition mints or that supposed support other artists. So I started doing that a long time ago for one artist, where let's say that you find somebody that you like their art, you follow them. If you're on mobile or computer, there's going to be a little drop-down menu that will pop up, and it'll show you like, I want to say like 10 different accounts that are similar to that specific artist. And then you can just fall in a loophole of like all these different other people that have similar accounts to this person. So that's a good way to find people that are similar to what you're looking for. But obviously it's more intensive. Like you got to spend a lot more time actually looking through them.
Yeah, really well said, Poppy. And I mean, that's why I just feel like MVHQ is honestly like such a valuable tool. And I'm not just saying that because I'm up here doing this, you know, like I'm here voluntarily and because I love the community, but we just do such a good job of catching projects, especially within the context of the current meta. I mean, all of the open editions that were coming out, so many of them were like with less than a day's notice. They were popping up overnight. So those aren't things that you'll always catch just organically on Twitter. And on Twitter, you do run into a lot of shills and paid promotions. So just the stuff coming out of the MVHQ funnel is always my jumping off point for my day if looking through projects, because it's just so streamlined. And it's nice that for the projects that are coming out, right, you already have like the thumb up, thumb down indicator, which at the very least, pay more attention to the projects that have people excited, right? If it's 5-1, people are excited for Bunny Kitty for whatever reason, I'll check it out. Something's just getting spammed with like big thumbs down and the artwork looks kind of dumb, like the Tigers here. Okay, I'm probably not going to pay attention to this because it's 1-3. I don't know who did the Tiger. Sorry if that was your artwork. So I take back the dumb artwork comment. But for something like this, error code, 5 thumbs down. I'm just at a glance with this thumbnail, not really sure what that is. I'm probably not going to do research on this project just for time purposes, right? Like if something's just thumbed down to heck, there's not much of an incentive for me to dig deeper. But you always can. And based on everything that we talked about and how to look at it, right? I might look at Bunny Kitty. I know this drop already happened, but like I might say, okay, why are people excited about that? Then I go into Discord. We do the exact same process we talked about. I'll check out their Twitter. We can quickly check out Bunny Kitty's Twitter, just as another example of doing one of these here. So they have 25,000 followers. What does the art look like? I guess it's sort of pop, kind of cute. It looks like they have some branding here, so maybe this to me says they have some marketing or they have some advertising budget. Maybe there's a bigger brand affiliated with it if this is at a convention center. So if they have some reason that they're driving buyers to this project or make me believe that they have a big budget so they could do more with this project, maybe I'll get a little bit more excited. I want to see if the 25,000 followers are real. What I'll do is I'll try to find a post that should have a lot of love for it or something like that. 720 views after 3 hours with 25,000. I'm not really sure. That honestly does seem like maybe they have some fake followers. They only have 5 likes, and this was 3 hours ago. We saw way better metrics on the last project we looked at with less followers. Looking at the art, it's pretty similar. It looks like these are kind of like different because this might be a special one, but the actual shape of all the NFTs is very similar. In my mind, like if I'm a collector, this isn't that much different from this, which isn't that much different from this. So I'm seeing they have like a shop here. Maybe I do more research into the creators, do more research into the brand that sponsored this project if there is one. But you know, you can already get a sense of me looking at here and saying, what are the red flags, right? Not a lot of engagement from the retweets, not a lot of likes. The art is just meh, in my opinion. And again, it's completely different. So please don't flame me if you love bunny kitties. I don't really know anything about the project, but hopefully you're getting an idea of like what this process looks like. And that's what it's all about, just the process, right? You do this a bunch, you're going to see way more bad projects than you see good ones. That's just a given. One or two true good books, sometimes less, but
Oh, we're losing you there.
The funny kitty creator was not happy with Ross and what he had to say.
Bunny Kitty's taking him down.
Can you hear me now, Poppy?
Loud and clear.
Okay, wow, yeah, I got rugged by the bunny kitties there.
The devs were doing something, bro.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that just about does it on my end. I'm more than welcome to take any questions from the audience at this point, but I just appreciate, first and foremost, you guys let me host one of these again, and all the support from the MVHQ fam and team. And for everybody who's new to the community, welcome. It's honestly just the best place to be for information regarding all projects, so you came to the right place. But I truly do hope that you guys learned something today, or at least have just some ideas of what to think about when you're looking at a project. If you have any other questions before we wrap it up here, could be about trading, could be about projects, whatever you want, I'm happy to give my take on.
Yeah, we have quite a few. Let's start off with Giles real quick. What do you enter after establishing an exit point and then execute on it? He's referring us to, like, let's say you're doing research on the fly, like it's more volume related, and you find a project that, all right, I did my due diligence, I'm going to go in. What's your strategy? Do you think about what your exit is before you go in? Do you do that on the fly, just kind of decide in a minute, right? Like what's your way of approaching that?
You always need to build in some flexibility, but I do absolutely think about where I'm getting in for a project. So the very first thing that I look at when I'm entering a project is, what is my break-even point? So I'm looking at the gas, I'm looking at the royalty, and I'm seeing, okay, like, where do I need to sell this for me to get my money back? Where do I need to sell this for me to actually get a profit? Usually when I'm buying something, I list things like right off the bat. So I usually buy a few NFTs if I'm buying something. If it was something really expensive and I only had one, I would probably not list it at first. I'd probably just wait for the price action to start forming a chart and for me to react off of that. Let's say I'm sweeping a smaller collection, right? So if I'm going to buy like 20 NFTs at once, I'm just going to list them right off the bat and ladder it out so that I can be profitable and I don't have to worry about it as much. Sometimes I'll leave some unlisted so that I have a couple of runners if the collection does explode. But let's say I bought 10 NFTs for like 0.1 a piece. I would immediately start listing some at 0.13, 0.15, 0.17, 0.18, and just look at what the floor looks like and just ladder it out so that as the price goes up, I'm starting to take a profit automatically. It's not something that I need to think about. I'm not really thinking about a hard and fast stop loss because I want to watch the activity unfold in Nerds. I see a bunch of listings hit the floor all at once and news comes out in MVHQ, hey, this project's a rug. I'm going to just slam all of the NFTs that I have at floor price or below floor price, and I'm going to undercut people and get out, right? If you need to get out immediately because, hey, this project is a rug, you just want to get out and get your money, at which point it doesn't matter what your stop loss is. Your goal is get liquidity back, set at floor, try to get sales. I'm usually using that as my stop loss as opposed to a set number, because any project I'm entering, it's with the expectation that the price is going up. If it's a longer term hold and my thesis hasn't changed, I will probably continue to hold it. So if I were to buy a CryptoPunk because I really want to have them for the long term future, I'm not going to say to myself, hey, if a CryptoPunk goes to 35 ETH, I'm going to sell it. I probably wouldn't do it for a collection like that. So I think rather than just like a set rule for a stop loss, I'm considering what was my thesis for buying it. If it was a project similar to those, I guess like bunny kitties that we were looking at, I don't think that's going to be a blue chip project. If I did buy that, I would probably be looking to take a quick flip. So as soon as I see on the price action chart, hey, they're starting to brick the floor and they're just listings are coming in faster than sales, I'm probably just going to get out. It definitely depends what your stance is. If you bought something and want to hold it to zero, that's something that I'll do for cheaper collections. So if there's an NFT that's like 0.001 and it's less than $100 per NFT, realistically just going to buy it and hold it to zero. And then if it ever gets a resurgence of volume, awesome. If not, then I risked accordingly the first time, right? I'm not out dropping 5 ETH on projects that are 0.0001 because that's so risky. Those could easily go to zero immediately. So for those, it's just about like, what type of project is it? Was my plan going into it to hold and make money? Am I already going to sell it off the bat? Or like, is it just something that I'm going to let expire worthless? It's all up to you and depends on your account size.
Thank you for sharing. That was amazing insight. I think what you just mentioned also goes into the next question, which is, do you have a strategy for setting offers on high volume collections? Like, what would be the pros and cons of doing that on a project that you just recently got an entry in, or it's starting to rip? Do you closely monitor? Do you set different parameters to see whether it's going to be worth it at the end of the day?
Sure. Do you mind clarifying for me, Poppy? Are they saying if I'm the one setting the offers and like I'm offering for a collection, or accepting offers that I might have gotten?
Yeah, so you would be the one setting the offers for the collection.
Gotcha. For that, I know that there are bots and tools that can help you mass offer. I usually don't offer on stuff unless it's like rare pieces of a collection, or a collection that's been out for a while. So if it is a collection that just came out today for the first time, I might put an offer out if it's a rare that I wanted to get. So say there was a brand new project that came out that people thought was going to be a blue chip, and I will use Azuki as an example. Let's say Azuki just came out for the very first time today, and everyone's really excited. If you were around when this project dropped, everyone in the voice chat was just super pumped. It was very clear that this was going to be a big project. The art looked amazing. I mean, you can go look at Azuki. It's a great looking project. Do your own research, but again, it's a blue chip at this point, so nothing unheard of here. If a project just came out and it was like, this is going to be a new blue chip, I will absolutely go to a tool that will show me the rarity of every piece, right? I'll pull up fresh drops, I'll pull up NFT nerds, and I'm just going to have it list out the entire collection and show me all of the rare items. I'm going to then just start spamming offers on rares that I think I can make a profit off of, right? If it's a certain trait that I think is undervalued, if it's a high rarity that I'm hoping someone just doesn't realize what they have and they're going to accept it at a moment's notice, I am always trying to make an offer so that I can get a profit immediately. So if I see that the floor price on a certain trait on a rare Azuki, let's say the little headband that my bean is wearing, there's an Azuki that has those headbands as well. That's a trait in the like parent collection as well. One kind of had a bit of a premium, and I actually had that when I still had an Azuki, the one with the headband. So for that, I might see the floor of that trait is like 5 ETH, but then there's only one sale needed to bring it up to like a 9 ETH floor. Maybe I'll put on the floor of that trait an offer out for 4 ETH or something so that I can immediately delist mine from the floor and the floor will raise. like that is like when I would probably be most likely to leverage an offer. It would usually just be for rares of a collection. If it's a collection that has a lot of volume and I'm trying to get into it, I'm not going to waste my time by putting out offers and bids. I'm just going to buy the floor, because if something's moving quickly, I want to get into it. So I'm pretty much just reserving bids for individual pieces that I'm hoping I can get lucky and get a little bit of a lowball on, or just a collection that's been out for a while, like a Bored Ape or something, and I want to hope someone just needs immediate liquidity, so they'll accept an offer below the floor. But usually I'm not putting offers in.
Awesome. And we have another question by Frere that I'm going to add a little bit on top of what you have to say. So I'm excited to hear your input. Could you talk a little bit more about spotting something unique that could possibly be another blue chip, and what would be the process of finding that? Think Azuki, Wolf Game even. It could be gaming, it could be PFP, Gen Art, Art Blocks, you name it.
I would say the biggest factor is the community, right? Not just MVHQ, but the entire crypto NFT lands. If you're on Twitter and you're seeing notable influencers change their profile pictures to a collection that just came out, really good sign. If you're seeing a bunch of articles on Twitter about why MVHQ is the next blue chip, and everyone on there is changing their banner to MVHQ, or they're changing it to their profile picture, that is just such a green flag in terms of just, wow, this project is actually building a community. And that truly is the thing that sends it down the line. I know that might sound corny to some extent, of it's a community that's bringing us this far, but it really is the case, right? Considering that there's 10,000 pieces for most collections, you need a lot of people who are actively committed to buying an NFT and holding it. That usually only happens with a strong community. So if I'm seeing Farouk's changing his PFP, and Pranksy is buying, and Gary V is also buying, and a bunch of people are talking about it, and there's some sort of context or setting for why it's going to be good, that's when I start to get excited and start thinking that it might have a contender status for a blue chip. With Azuki, it was so clear just because of the art, and then also the number of huge whales that came in and swept it. That's also such a big one. I mean, people will call it out in MVHQ. They'll say, wow, a whale just swept this one. This person bought 50. But people are buying collections at really high price points. It does establish kind of that line of pricing, right? If Dingaling is going to come in and sweep 100 NFTs at 2 ETH a piece, he's going to be getting such a huge loss if it goes to 1 ETH. So if he's holding and the floor's not dropping, ideally the price goes higher, and that these huge whales aren't going to be selling until there's some profit. So in my head, that's the floor is going to go up here because these whales are locking so many up. So I would look at all those factors. What are the big people doing? What is the average person doing? Are they excited about the project? If it's just across the board, everyone likes it, it's unique, it has good art, it's different, it'll probably do something.
Yeah, something I want to add on top of that as well is using your resources that you have as an MVHQ member. If you go down to focus discussions, you'll see a lot of different threads on topics regarding a type of project, whether it's PFP, whether it's gaming, play to earn, you name it, right? Where we talk about these ecosystems. So if you see a thread that's being talked about a lot, there's a high chance that there's a lot of traction on it, right? So you have an incentive to look into that project, just for the fact that if we're talking about an MVHQ, it's not for fun or vibes. There's that could be a factor, right? But there could also be a potential opportunity there for you. Another thing is field reports. When I first got started in MVHQ, I would always research our field reports, just because if it's interesting enough for somebody else to write a report on it, it probably should be read by you, right? And another channel that usually gets slept on is VC link dump, right? It's kind of hard to go through voice hangout chat and just read through all the thousands of messages that come out throughout the day. But VC link dump and recent recaps gives good insight onto what we're talking about, right? Throughout the day. So just even going through those links and seeing like, all right, well, what are they talking about throughout the day? You can kind of pick apart what was the topic of the day, or if there was a specific project coming up. And then from then on, you can start doing your own due diligence, whether it's, researching their Discord, checking who's talking about them. And, there's even tools for checking out how many people on Twitter are active with a specific PFP collection. So there's parameters that you can add to different tools that help with that.
Poppy, well said again, and absolutely calling out some of my favorite channels that we have at MVHQ. VC Link Dump is a killer, absolutely one that I'm using all the time. But field reports for sure. You have people who are doing the exact same research as you, all consolidating into one place. I did want to give some additional parting thoughts here, just kind of in that vein. Always be thinking for yourself while you're making these trades, and just remember that there are different things that you're going to look for other people. That's why it's always so important to consider it in the context of your own account, your own bankroll, and what your own criteria for what good projects look like. Just given the amount of people that are in MVHQ, you're going to have projects where a lot of people are bullish on it. That doesn't automatically mean that that project's going to be successful. And the converse, people might be fading a project or fudding it and saying this doesn't have the legs, and it might, explode overnight. There's no telling what's going to happen into the future. These are just trying to give you the resources and the thought patterns to try to figure it out on your own and be, better able to keep up with all of this price action and the projects as they're coming out. But for sure, it's such a good resource in chat. I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that not every project that's get called out is automatically going to be good. So it's no substitution to doing your own research and just forming your own opinions.
And knowing when to cut your losses.
Amen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then other than that, the only other thing is in MVHQ, we try to keep it eyes forward. I know JJ is well known for that. I love the philosophy myself, but you're going to have some projects that you miss out on. You're going to have stuff that you sell too early. Rather than beating yourself up over it in here, just always try to learn from it. If there's a project that you were thinking about getting into and you didn't, remember what were those things you were looking at. If you didn't get into a project that just ran big, into that project, see what were the contributing factors to its success. Just dissect everything that's on that trending board. If I'm not trading actively, I'm still going through nerds and looking at every project that's trending and just seeing like what happened, why did it get big? Why did sales start? Why did they stop? And just understanding what makes an NFT project go. Like, I promise the more that you do this, the more that you see it come through the funnel and leave the funnel, like you're going to be better equipped the next time around. So if you miss one, keep it eyes forward. Don't sweat it. Like, there's plenty more opportunities to come. All right, I think that's it for me, unless we got any other questions.
I think we covered everything today. I just want to say thank you very much for your input. I learned a great deal about kind of doing DD and research on the fly. I tend to look at things more pre-mint and post-mint opportunities, as opposed to looking at like the fire hose from nerds and just doing it on the fly there. I think that's a neat idea, and a great way to approach the fast-paced environment that we're always subjected to. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to you for your time today. Absolute legend. Thank you to everyone that stopped by today. Our recording should be processed in a couple days, probably by the end of the weekend. And yeah, if you have any questions, always remember all the speakers that we have in here and guest hosts are part of MVHQ. So feel free to ask them questions. We're always here for you. And yeah, always think that we are approachable, because we are.
Yeah, we are super, super approachable. But thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you taking your time and chatting with me today. It means a lot. And I will see you in chat. Take care, everybody.